Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And we know we have 8,600 people registered for today's event from 100 countries, over 100 countries. My name is Maher Nasser, and I'm the Director of the Outreach Division at the United Nations Department of Global Communications. Thank you all for joining us today for this virtual event marking World Autism Awareness Day. I am happy to say that we have participants from more than 100 countries registered for this event, which is wonderful to see. We want to make the best use of the time we have, so I will dive right in. Today's discussion, I would like to begin by recalling the key role the United Nations has played in advancing the rights of people with disabilities, including people on the autism spectrum. And more than 400 civil society organizations, mostly led by persons with disabilities themselves, came together at the United Nations with states' representatives to draft the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. It is the foundational document on disability rights that guides us today. In 2007, the United Nations General Assembly took another important step when it declared the 2nd of April as World Autism Awareness Day, which we have seized on to advocate for of people on the autism spectrum. Far too often, rights have been absent from the public discourse on autism. By joining us for today's discussion, you are helping to bring attention to the crucial rights issue that demands concerted attention. Before we launch into today's program, I would like to express deep appreciation to the permanent missions of UN member states that are sponsoring today's event. They are the permanent missions of Bangladesh, Bulgaria, Cyprus, Denmark, Ecuador, France, Italy, Malta, Poland, and Qatar. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank our civil society partner, Specialistern Foundation, for working so closely with us on today's event. Thanks also to Wells Fargo, Workday Foundation, IBM, and Google for the support that they have provided. It is now my pleasure to introduce Melissa Fleming, Under Secretary General for Global Communications, for her statement.
Thank you, Maher, for the introduction. I am so pleased to join you for today's virtual event. We have a truly global audience this morning. At the outset, I would like to thank the permanent missions to the United Nations that are co-sponsoring today's event. We greatly appreciate and value your support. As we meet here today, it is undeniable that we still have a long way to go in ensuring that persons with autism fully enjoy the rights and freedoms that we are all entitled to. As the autism community rightly points out, we have moved beyond the need for awareness to a need for autism acceptance. And that is why we're here today, to call for acceptance and respect for the rights of people with autism to realize their full participation in society. This year, our focus is on the right to employment. A vast majority of adults on the autism spectrum are still either unemployed or severely underemployed, largely due to discriminatory hiring practices and workplace environments that are not inclusive. This is despite the fact that the right to employment is enshrined in the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This right is also strongly reflected in the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which were adopted by the world in 2015. The goals provide a shared blueprint for achieving peace and prosperity by the year 2030 and for ending poverty and inequality, including the kind of inequality we are discussing here today, all while tackling climate change and preserving the environment. Goal 8, decent work and economic growth, is particularly relevant as it calls for achieving full and productive employment and decent work for all, including for persons with disabilities, by the year 2030. We can make significant progress on these fronts over the coming decade. We know that the ambition is not lacking and that the private sector is waking up to the benefits of tapping the skills and abilities of a more diverse talent pool. But we can't deny that the COVID-19 pandemic, which has pushed us into the worst global economic crisis since the Great Depression, has disrupted that positive momentum. That only makes it more important to harness the ambition that exists and to look beyond the current crisis. While the pandemic has been destructive, it has also opened up new possibilities. New ways of working, including remote working, have created opportunities for employees who have found traditional workplace environments challenging. So we have some positive changes to build on. I hope that the discussion to follow will inspire creative ideas to transform the workplace into an environment that is truly inclusive of all neurodivergent people in a post-pandemic world. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, regrets not being able to join us today, but he sends his best wishes for this event and for this day. And now it is my honor to read a message from the Secretary General to you. As we work together to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, one key goal must be to build a more inclusive and accessible world that recognizes the contributions of all people, including persons with disabilities. The crisis has created new obstacles and challenges, but efforts to reignite the global economy offer an opportunity to reimagine the workplace and to make diversity, inclusion, and equity a reality. Recovery is also a chance to rethink our systems of education and training to ensure that persons with autism are afforded opportunities for realizing their potential. Breaking old habits will be crucial. For persons with autism, access to decent work on an equal basis requires creating an enabling environment along with reasonable accommodation. To truly leave no one behind in pursuit of the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development, we must realize the rights of all persons with disabilities, including persons with autism, ensuring their full participation in social, cultural, and economic life. Let us work together with all persons with disabilities and their representative organizations to find innovative solutions to recover better and build a world that is better for all. That concludes the Secretary General's message. Thank you very much, and back to you, Maher.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Thorkel Sonne, founder of Specialisterne Foundation, which has as its goal to generate meaningful employment for 1 million autistic and neurodivergent people worldwide. Thorkel is joining us from a studio in Copenhagen, and after his brief remarks, he will take over as Master of Ceremonies for the rest of the program. Thorkel, over to you, and thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Maher, for this introduction. My name is Thorkel Sonne. I'm the founder and chair of Specialisterne Foundation. At the United Nations World Autism Awareness Day in 2015, we introduced the Autism Advantage theme, and I shared our goal of enabling 1 million jobs for neurodivergent persons. Today, I'm here to tell you that the labor market is changing. All over the globe, companies are discovering the autism advantage. Visionary business leaders are discovering the variety of talents that autistic people possess. Autistic employees are creating incredible results in the organizations they are working in. Since I spoke to you in 2015, hundreds of employment initiatives supported by Specialisterne and followers have enabled thousands of jobs. There's a simple reason for this. Today, it's no longer a secret that neurodiversity programs can create value for businesses. It's a fact. Professor Rob Austin and his team at Ivy Business School have found 3 major benefits. First, neurodiverse employment programs help companies access maximum talent. Second, when a work environment is designed to better fit neurodivergent persons, it benefits all employees. And third, neurodiversity employment programs make all employees feel good about their work and their company. People like a neurodiverse workplace better. SDG 8, Decent Work and Economic Growth, sets the ambition for a global collaboration to make inclusion of neurodivergent persons mainstream in recruitment processes. To celebrate the business leaders and the companies that are at the forefront of creating a more inclusive workplace, I'm thrilled to announce the Inclusion Award made possible by Wells Fargo. The criteria will encourage companies, large and small, to be the best and most innovative employers for a neurodiverse workforce. To promote the Inclusion Award, we'll invite leaders to join a coalition of companies, governments, and civil society stakeholders committed to world-class inclusion. The nomination process will be developed with Rob Austin and his team and announced in the fall. In a year from now, we'll celebrate the winners with you. I've seen the light in the eyes of young people when they discover hope for an independent life through a fulfilling job. I've seen the love and compassion of parents turn from hope to action as they become advocates for inclusion in the community and workplace. And I've seen the leadership of individuals who go the extra mile to make their companies great for all. Help us give people hope. Help us turn hope into action and action into impact. Help us spread the autism advantage. The pandemic has hurt everyone, but don't let it set us back. Autism is not a disadvantage. In the right settings, it's an advantage that can benefit companies and organizations all over the world. We are on a mission to enable 1 million jobs, and we will. Follow us. Help us create a better workplace for all. Let us use the learnings from the pandemic to create a new labor market with more equal opportunities for all. With these remarks, I would like to give the word to Charlotte Valeur, the moderator of the first panel, to introduce herself and the panelists and lead the discussion about disparities and discrimination exposed by the pandemic. Over to you, Charlotte.
Thank you very much, Torkild. I'm delighted to be here and to be part of this annual UN World Autism Awareness Day event, and also to be a moderator of the two panel discussions. As we have heard, like this year, we have a focus on inclusion in the workplace. I'm autistic myself, and I'm also very pleased to have two all autistic panels to moderate. This is a first for me, and I hope there'll be many more to follow. We are really so lucky to have some amazing panelists who are all actively advocating for improved conditions for autistic people. The UN and Specialisterna has created a great opportunity for you all to hear the insight of autistic people from around the world. You can read about their impressive biographies of our panelists in the program that has been sent around already. So the first panel deals with disparities and discrimination exposed by the pandemic. Our panelists are Sarah from Kenya, who's computer skills trainer and works with Step Up for Autism. Adam from Ireland, founder and chief executive of As I Am. And Harry, student and student instructor, University of California, board member of Autistic Self-Advocacy Network in the US. Welcome all. So, Sarah, can I ask you first, how has the pandemic affected you?
Hello and good evening, guys. Thank you for the question. I would say the pandemic, when the pandemic was announced in Kenya, It was announced in March 2020, and since that day, nothing has ever been the same for me again. I had to stay indoors for many days and miss my usual routine, which serves as my therapy. The pandemic has also enabled us to think broader as an organization and as an individual to look into sustainable projects that we have initiated because we saw how tough individuals with autism like myself couldn't make ends meet or even participate in the race for employment and competition in search for equal opportunities. The project we initiated is aimed at creating a cyber cafe for internet services and is run by autistic individuals. Thank you.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. Now, moving on to Adam. Do you feel the pandemic has exposed discrimination against autistic individuals?
I think it has. I think COVID-19 has been hard for people right across the world, but I think for autistic people, some of the challenges have been particularly acute. In my own organisation, which is Ireland's national autism charity, we've seen queries rise by 280% over the course of the pandemic. And people are highlighting to us issues such as loneliness, social isolation, and a lack of key support services. And of course, so many of the problems that we are encountering come in the first instance from the barriers people are facing in accessing work. That in and of itself has led to social isolation, mental health problems, social disadvantage. That said, I do believe the pandemic has also created some opportunities. I think that not everything was fair about the old world prior to COVID-19. We had many assumptions about the world of work. On World Autism Day, we launched a report called Autism in the Workplace in partnership with irishjobs.ie that said here in Ireland, 90% of autistic people felt that being autistic prevented them or posed challenges to them accessing a job. And 75% said they would be reluctant to tell their employer that they were autistic. So I think there's big opportunities as the world changes in light of COVID-19 to build on things like remote working, to change the culture of our workplaces so that we can enable autistic people to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, some really good points there from you. Well done. So Hari, how has the pandemic affected you?
Hello, world. My late grandpa was a UN executive, so it's really extra special to be on this UN panel today. The pandemic has presented both challenges and opportunities for many autistics like me. Many autistics have a hard time with uncertainty, and the pandemic has been like the ultimate uncertainty. There is also the disorientation due to the sense of a loss of time with each day of Zoom meetings looking exactly the same. Worldwide, there has been a surge in mental health issues. The anxiety is compounded in autistics and often manifests as upticks in obsessive and repetitive behaviors, meltdowns, sleep disturbances, etc. On the flip side, while I miss the buzzing energy and life of campus, it's actually been a fantastic year for me, and I am involved in so many projects and conferences now. For instance, I just got selected as a Haas Scholar at UC Berkeley, where I will be doing a year-long research on autism. Remote learning via Zoom has been ironically equalizing. In a large lecture class, everyone is on mute, even students who can talk. Control of the camera puts me in charge of the amount of atypical body mannerisms that others get to notice. Remote work also reduces a lot of the anxieties around the constant societal need for physical social interactions, eye contact, and trying not to draw attention to my atypical manner, all of which takes up extra mental effort and energy. So I'm actually able to get a lot more done now. I also love that we are now able to seamlessly interact with people from around the world without the anxiety of travel. I did not think I would get to hear perspectives from Africa or Ireland like today, for instance. In the post-pandemic world, I would love to see hybrid solutions for autistics so we get the advantages of both the remote and physical environments.
Thank you so much. That was a really thoughtful comment, Hari, and I can certainly relate to a lot of that. I'm personally very happy not to travel as much as I used to do. and that I can reach the world from my home. So thank you so much for your great insights already. So going back to Sarah, in your experience, what can the workplace do to improve conditions for autistic employees?
Thank you for the question again. Autistic employees in many organizations do go through a lot of challenges due to the invisibility of their disability. The workplace should take into account the challenges of autistic people. We autistic individuals already have disability challenges that can be stressful under pressure, situations in regards to job hunting and well-being. So being a recognized team member of the organization as well as the services I provide, being appreciated can lift up my spirits and make me feel included. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you very much for the great answer. Adam, would you mind also talking about what you believe the workplace can do to improve conditions for autistic employees?
Yeah, I think when we think about a typical job interview, I spend a lot of my time designing autism-friendly processes and organizations and experiences. But if anyone ever asked me to design something that wasn't autism-friendly, I would pick a traditional interview process because it's built on the unknown, answering abstract questions, and building rapport with strangers. So straight away, this disadvantages autistic talent to the point that many people over time have had such negative experiences, they even stop actively seeking work. So I think we need to ask ourselves how we identify and recruit talent in the first instance. Is that the best way to actually get the right people for the job? I think that's one key piece. The second piece, I think, is about understanding that recruitment is about autism-friendly employment is about more than a recruitment. It's about creating an inclusive and supportive environment. And that means educating colleagues and talking about autism as a mainstream D&I issue. But finally, I think an area that we really need to improve in is our recent survey showed that just 16% of businesses surveyed were providing opportunities for those with high support needs autism. It's really important we recognise that inclusive employment is about all autistic people. That means those who can work full-time and who have university qualifications, but also those who need to be able to access local opportunities with support for a small number of hours a week. Employment is about more than economic factors, it's also about participation. So we need government, civil society and business to work in partnership to create the range of options we need to ensure full autism employment.
That's really good insights for all of us, Adam. Thank you so much. Inclusion is a really key part of ensuring that it actually works. We can hire people, but if we don't make it easy for them to be around, and everybody needs appropriate accommodation. Thank you so much. Harry, do you feel the pandemic has exposed discrimination against autistic individuals?
The pandemic exposed systemic flaws in societal attitudes. One is the lip service that was paid to accessibility in the pre-pandemic world. For years, the disability community has been asking for remote work or hybrid solutions as many faced access barriers in education and workplace. We were told remote work was impossible. Yet it suddenly became possible overnight when there was a will for it. We can only hope that such benefits will continue in the post-pandemic world with the virtual workplace the norm for many companies. But we need to watch for a couple of issues. Who will decide who gets to work remotely and who does not? Will the disabled community continue to be less protected? And also that remote work will not result in greater isolation for the disabled community. Some of us autistics benefited from Zoom education, but what has been troubling is that while regular education was able to transition to remote learning, hands-on special education services abruptly stopped. Remote education or teletherapy did not work for many who need that physical one-on-one support and have other needs. The disproportionate access to services meant that many autistics faced regression in skills that take time to build up, like building independence in the community. Adult autistics living in group residential settings were at higher risk for the spread of COVID as well as medical rationing. This is a small list actually.
That's a great answer. Thank you so much, Harry. We are learning so much. I hope everybody is listening in to the voice of autistic people so that you can hear what it is we really feel is needed. Sarah, can I ask you the last question, last round we have time for? What are your experiences of inclusion at work?
Thank you again for the question. I work as a volunteer with Step Up for Autism, a community-based organization in Nairobi that offers occupational and speech therapy services to children with autism from low-income areas for free and teaches computers to teenagers. My role there is to teach teenagers basic computer skills. I am happy and contented here due to the level of inclusion that Step Up for Autism adheres to. I feel included because my views and opinions are taken into account by the management, and I am treated by my colleagues as an equal. When there are challenges at the workplace, I am informed and involved. Currently tasked with mobilizing resources to get more computers, funding, and equipment to expand our autism cyber cafe project. This project will provide direct employment for autistic individuals and get them paid and be in an environment that they feel safe in and accepted and included. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Adam, for you, in your experience, moving on to sort of looking at educational organizations, how can they improve conditions for autistic students?
I think the pandemic has highlighted the shortfalls that still exist in our education system around the world when it comes to autism inclusion. I think throughout the pandemic, we did not see a prioritization of the needs of autistic children. We know the suffering that has led to, but I think we don't know the full long-term impact that decision has had. For example, the closure of special schools and classes during parts of the pandemic. I think where we've made great progress in recent decades is getting people into the one building, into the one classroom. We need to understand that isn't necessarily inclusion. We need to make sure that our schools and our education systems are adapting to ensure that autistic people can meaningfully learn. But critically, around the world, what we are seeing is the first generation of autistic people diagnosed in large numbers as children reaching adulthood. It's now essential that we bring inclusion beyond the school gate. We need better pathways between our education system and the world of work. And we need the adults to understand that autism isn't just for professionals, isn't just for teachers. It means creating a society in which every autistic person has the opportunity for meaningful work and participation throughout the life cycle. The time to do that is now, because we are on the cusp of a major social issue as we see a generation of autistic people age out of school. It's a huge investment to educate autistic people. We deserve the opportunity to then participate and contribute to society.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Adam. Harry, how do you think that job interviews during this pandemic might have affected autistic people?
Interviewers often form impressions of you in the first few minutes. Much as we would like to pretend otherwise, there's a certain societal expectation of the body language of a candidate. So I am trying to gauge their mood, body language on top of worrying about my own atypical body mannerisms, eye contact, and other sensory stimulation. There is a lot of mental and physical effort going into these extraneous things. So virtual interviews could actually be a blessing in disguise. There is more control, a familiar physical space, the chair at the right height, and you can position yourself and get comfortable well before the interview starts. Somehow the behavioral expectations are far less in the virtual world, which means there is less mental effort. Virtual interviews are also more amenable to scripting, which many autistics rely on. So I hope virtual interviews continue in the post-pandemic world. There is another thing I want to add on the topic of employment. It is disappointing that many diversity hiring initiatives by employers have only certain profiles of autistics in mind. We need to think about employment and accommodations for all autistics who want to work, irrespective of their communication levels and support needs. So that is why it's important that we start having these conversations not just in the US but around the world. Thank you so much, everyone.
There are some fantastic points there, Harry. I absolutely agree on all of that. We really do need to look to everybody. Thank you so much for you, the panelists, for being here, for taking the time and preparing for everything. Hugely appreciated. Thank you. The world has learned a lot from you today.
Thanks so much, Charlotte, Sarah, Adam, Harry. This was great insight in the learnings of the pandemic. We'll now switch panelists, and I'll give the word back to Charlotte, who will also moderate the second panel to introduce the panelists and lead the discussion about ensuring inclusion as we build back better. Back to you, Charlotte.
Thank you so much, Torkild. Thank you very much. Delighted to introduce our next panelists here. First, it's Mehdi, who's from Morocco and a business owner. Then we have Sienna, neurodiversity and autism candidate from the UK, also young leader for the Sustainable Development Goals. We have JJ, Scrum Master at Procter & Gamble, at Costa Rica, and Asha, Quality Associate SAP Labs in India. Welcome to the panelists. So I'll start out right with Mehdi. From your perspective, what is the top inequality for autistic individuals?
Thank you so much for the question. Before we will start talking about a professional career, we should mention something that is start even before that, which is education. When we talk about education here in Morocco, sadly, most of autistics do not have an access to it, nor to an access to all the kind of services that is meant to be given to people with ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder. And there is another important part that I see, which is very, very important to me, which is the companionship. Companionship, which is meant to be given and offered to people with ASD to understand more and more the transition from a student to a job holder or a skilled worker. Another part which is related to assuring a job. Sadly, here in Morocco, specifically in the private sector, we kind of have zero chance to assure a job, especially as autistics. Another part we have also to mention, which is the environment where we're willing to work, which is absolutely not autistic friendly. And this kind of environment where should be accessible, so we can absolutely have 100% productivity. And otherwise, we will absolutely just suffer.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mehdi, for that. Sienna, what is the top inequality for autistic individuals that you would like to see eradicated?
I would like to see the gender inequality in the diagnosis and treatment of autistic girls and women eradicated. The commonly cited ratio that there are 4 autistic males for every 1 autistic female is wrong, misleading, and damaging. Unfortunately, most people, including doctors and medical professionals, still believe that autism is a male condition. This is due to the reliance on autistic male stereotypes and the lack of awareness that autism presents very differently in females. Females experience greater societal pressure to be social and to conform to the societal norm. As a consequence, autistic females become experts in camouflaging their autism. We teach ourselves to hide our autistic traits by becoming social anthropologists and memorizing scripts for social situations. Because the autism diagnosis criteria are based on the overt and observable male characteristics and traits of autism, it is much harder for females to be diagnosed. The embedded gender bias in the diagnostic criteria means that autistic females often don't meet the threshold because they appear to be too social on the surface. The significant challenges that autistic females face in being diagnosed explains why we are often misdiagnosed and not diagnosed until much later in life, or never receive a diagnosis.
Thank you. I can certainly relate to that, being 50 before I got diagnosed. So, yeah, thank you so much, Sienna. JJ, which new ways of working should we embrace?
Well, thank you for the question. I believe we should embrace ways of working that are centered around the people and how to meet their needs in order for them to be able to give their best at work. And why not even enjoy it? In my experience, being a part of the neurodiversity program at Procter & Gamble, I was able to experience firsthand that when there's an environment of acceptance and even celebration of our differences with an open communication, we feel compelled to give our best, to enjoy what we do, but most importantly, also take care of ourselves and our peers in the process. Because if we burn out, we will be no good for ourselves or whoever we're working with. And the more I thought about this approach, I came to the conclusion that this way would be great for everyone, not only autistic or neurodiverse people. That's why I would love an approach to work that is centered around people and their needs, whether it's working from home or from the office.
Thank you so much. I completely agree. I think often that what we change to accommodate neurodiverse people actually benefits everybody. And I think that's being proven more and more, so very good point to put around. Now, Asha, what is the best inclusion experience that you have had?
Thank you for the question, Charlotte. The best inclusion experience which I have had is getting an opportunity to host India Inclusion Summit in November 2019, along with the panel discussion with 3 panelists. I got to give a biography about myself and introduce some speakers. That was a wonderful event and opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great insights from our panelists in this first round of questioning. Now back to Mehdi. Mehdi, what can we learn from the pandemic?
Sadly, what we can learn from the pandemic, that the most vulnerable social community are people with disabilities. We can also understand that due to the pandemic, it's also us who mostly suffered and still suffering due mental health illnesses, due income-wise, which is become not that much. But let's not forget also that there are no specific support and economically wise, socially wise, nor psychologically during the lockdown and beyond. I'm talking about all of these specifically for Moroccan autistics, which we really had to struggle during the pandemic, socially, economically, and whatever that you can come in your minds. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great answer, Mehdi. Now, Sienna, how can we improve inclusion for autistic individuals in the workplace, in your opinion?
Businesses cannot rely on autistic individuals to disclose their autism. Since there is still a deeply rooted and malignant societal stigma to being autistic, many employees do not disclose their autism. Furthermore, many employees may not know they are autistic. This is especially true of autistic women, who continue to be significantly underdiagnosed. In addition, designing an autistic-focused recruitment and employee program only serves to stigmatize further and isolate autistic employees. The best way to create an inclusive work environment for all autistic individuals is for organizations to adopt a person-centric, highly individualized and proactive company policy and management style in which everyone's strengths and needs are recognized, supported, and respected. This approach not only benefits autistic employees, it also benefits all employees. Finally, drive change through education. Since approximately 20% of the global population is neurodivergent, organizations should require all their employees to attend neurodiversity acceptance training. This training could serve as an instrumental tool in developing a general awareness, understanding, and appreciation of autistic and neurodivergent colleagues across the organization. A workplace that is educated on neurodiversity will also make it easier for autistic and neurodivergent employees to disclose their neurological condition and thereby get the additional autism-specific support they may need.
That's great. Thank you. Really good insights for all of us, Sienna. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think we need also people trained in helping being inclusion help us in the workplace, but the overall education will certainly help that. So JJ, I wonder what an ideal new normal in the workplace would look like for you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm not a fan of the term new normal, probably the normal part, because what is normal anyway? Society
right.
and workplaces are constantly changing and evolving, and what was normal 50 years ago or even 20 years ago, it's not considered normal anymore. But entertaining the thought and making the most of this situation that we're in, I think for me that the ideal new normal would look like a place I got to know and work on even before the pandemic. I found a place that centered its focus on the people, has a culture of open, straightforward dialogue, or provides different ways for the people to develop, to feel appreciated, constantly learning from itself and adjusting. So in the end, I think everything goes back to what I said in my first question. The place will be a workplace that is centered on its employees and its people. And I think Sienna said it like a more people-centric approach that will benefit everyone.
Yeah, that's a great answer, JJ. We're definitely coming back to the people-centric approach. And I think the acceptance, of course, awareness is really important, but acceptance is really what we want. Acceptance of us as we are. That would be really nice everywhere, and then our lives would be a whole lot easier. Now, Asha, how can we improve inclusion for autistic individuals in the workplace, in your opinion?
Okay, we can improve inclusion for autistic individuals in the workplace by doing the following. Create job opportunities in different companies and organizations, focus on their strengths, skills, and talents, and provide encouragement, support, and an inclusive workplace for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Excellent. I hope everybody is taking notes out there. So we're learning so much from your insights and experiences. And luckily, we've got time for another round of questions. So back to Mehdi. Mehdi, what's the best inclusion experience you have had?
Thank you so much for the question. Before I should talk about that part, I should mention some statistics. Actually, Morocco is implementing a public program to ensure inclusion for people with disabilities in the market, but it's only basically preserved 9.8% from the job market in total. Also, they mentioned that they will give 7% or offer 7% to people with disabilities from 9.8 from the whole market, which is absolutely not enough. So we absolutely need more efforts to be granted full access to market for autistics, stressing inclusive vocational training, raise awareness among private and public companies. And to answer that question exactly, as a young entrepreneur, I created my own company because I literally had no chance in the job market. So what I did is I made sure that everyone is willing and going to be comfortable. I also made sure that there will be diversity between our colleagues, a safe place where everyone can be themselves, but also where they can express their needs, such as transportation was, such as technology that they are comfortable with or to work with. And also, what is the ways and the environment that they can have, for example, just simple as for example, patent wise, such as technology, like I mentioned before, such as everything that is related to professional environment. And in that way, I made sure that we will all be 100% productive. And I also personally made sure that the environment will be given to me, but also not just for me, but also for my colleagues. So I hope that I answered the question that was given to me. Thank you.
You did indeed. Thank you so much, Mehdi. It was a great answer. Now, Sienna, are there any positive effects of the pandemic for you?
The shift to working and studying from home has been very beneficial. Since I have significant autism-related sensory sensitivities, no longer having to commute using crowded public transport or having to work and study in autism-unfriendly buildings and environments has been liberating. At home, you can customize, tailor, and control your environment to your needs in a way that you can't in the workplace. Furthermore, the wide adoption and reliance on Zoom and other similar platforms has opened up a new world of limitless opportunities that has been especially beneficial to autistic people and people with disabilities. For example, now that most conferences and seminars are online, these events have become much more inclusive, diverse, and accessible. We can have a wider range of speakers from across the world and connect with larger and new audiences we may not have been able to reach before. In the last 6 months, I've given neurodiversity talks at events in California, Africa, and Asia. This wouldn't have been possible before the pandemic.
That's fantastic. It has opened up some good opportunities for all of us, I think. So, JJ, a last question for you. How can we improve inclusion for autistic individuals in the workplace in your view?
Well, thank you for the question. I believe that it's like a society responsibility in general. So I think it can be somehow governments could help improving the access to an early diagnosis, to a proper support network for the autistic person and their family growing up, so that economic status is not a problem and the autistic person is not left without a diagnosis or help because they couldn't afford it. Because their parent could not afford proper help or guidance. I think if we achieve those things alongside with awareness and acceptance campaigns so that neurotypicals and companies get to include, know, and understand us better, will eventually make it easier for us autistic individuals to get to a workplace well prepared, where we know we will not be judged for our quirks, not be judged by the way we communicate, but just let our work speak for ourselves. So I think all I said can be summed up, that awareness, acceptance, and appreciation of everyone, regardless of where on the spectrum do we fall, will help improve inclusion.
Absolutely. The 3 A's, they're very important. Thank you so much, JJ, for that. Asha, the final question for you. Are there any positive effects of the pandemic for you?
Yes, there are positive effects for the pandemic for me, which include flexible working hours, not commuting and dealing with traffic, and relaxation in traditional workplace rules due to working from home. For instance, I don't have to wake up early, travel to office, and wear normal office clothes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That takes us to the end of the panel. Thank you so much for all the panelists for being really amazing at giving well-considered, really succinct answers. Keeping to time, which is something we always get concerned about. You've been amazing, all of you. Sharing your insights and experiences is just so hugely valuable, and we do need to hear autistic voices around the world more often. So thank you so much for today, and thank you so much for the UN and especially Center for giving us this opportunity to put our voices and insights out there.
Thanks so much, Charlotte, Mehdi, Sienna, JJ, Asha. It was absolutely fantastic, both panels. So I appreciated that a lot. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
And now I would like to show the recorded message from Maria Francesca Spartolizano, Assistant Secretary General at the UN Department of Economics and Social Affairs, for the closing remarks. Please roll the video.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, this year's World Autism Awareness Day witnesses the seismic impact that COVID-19 has had on the world and on persons with autism. It is an opportunity for the international community to unite in our shared endeavor to recover better. Thus, our focus today is on inclusive employment as a key component to building better lives for all. On behalf of DESA, I would like to acknowledge the many years of dedicated work from this global community of and for those with autism, including our civil society and self-advocate partners, and the colleagues from the UN Secretariat and other UN entities, which has made possible the progress we celebrate today. I would also like to extend our gratitude to our excellent panelists. Your expertise and experiences highlighted this progress while shedding light on the increased underemployment of persons with autism, as well as the hurdles they face in different working environments. Moreover, you have provided new and innovative ideas for pathways towards an inclusive post-COVID-19 world. The full inclusion of persons with disabilities, including those with autism, is paramount to fulfilling the goals of the 2030 Agenda and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and to creating enabling environments that are open, inclusive, and accessible to those with autism. This pandemic has reinforced existing barriers that many persons with autism face in employment and achieving financial autonomy. Unemployment among the community has increased, and those looking for employment have encountered the worsened marginalization in a more competitive job market. Additionally, while remote work has allowed some persons with autism to benefit, others have struggled to maintain their well-being under the disruption to their routines. Today, we highlighted the need for the partnerships with public and private institutions to promote inclusive employment. We also explored policies to enable persons with autism to access decent work on an equal basis with others. As discussed by the panel, this would include putting anti-discrimination measures in place relating to hiring practices, as well as policies to promote reasonable accommodation for those whose potential is limited by conventional work environments. The UN is working to make a more inclusive and enabling employment landscape a reality. And we are committed to building resources and capacity to recovering better towards an inclusive, accessible, and sustainable post-COVID-19 world, together with the community of and for persons with autism, member states, other UN entities, academic institutions, the private sector, and other stakeholders. We have launched a joint effort to make the implementation of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the 2030 Agenda an integral part of COVID-19 response and recovery. Our department brought together key stakeholders in an expansive series of panels and events on the economic and social impacts of the pandemic. And we have produced a series of policy briefs to analyze the situation of those furthest left behind and to propose recommendations for action. In addition, together with other UN agencies, DESA is contributing to a number of UN system-wide actions toward the goal of building back better. For example, the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy, launched by the Secretary General in 2019, is making progress through the comprehensive mainstreaming of disability inclusion in all UN projects. Creating practices and environments that value neurodiversity for and with persons with autism requires the targeted attention and full cooperation of all stakeholders, including governments, civil society, and the private sector. The international community, including the community of and for persons with autism, should intensify their collaboration to render disability inclusion a cross-cutting principle in all response, recovery, and development activities. It is the only way to leave no one behind, and DESA and its partners remain ready to support it. Today's commemoration of World Autism Awareness Day demonstrated what needs to be done and how to do it better. Those of us committed to the full and equal participation of persons with autism in society and development. And that includes all of us present at this event and our colleagues, experts, individual advocates, and all of our partners worldwide, represent a community of action for and with persons with autism. Together with persons with autism at the forefront of recovery, both as agents and beneficiaries of change, we can navigate our way to a better and more inclusive future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bartolizano, for the closing remarks of the UN World Autism Awareness Day event, where we discussed the theme of inclusion in the workplace, challenges and opportunities in a post-pandemic world. The pandemic will hopefully be over soon, but the need for inclusion of a neurodiverse workforce will always remain. We hope you found motivation in this webinar to get even more engaged as an advocate for inclusion of neurodivergent persons in your workplace and the community during and after the pandemic. Please help us share the messages from this event in your network. Personally, I think we have learned so much today. We have more than 3,000 people joining us from around the world. Many of those will be employers, teachers, government employees, civil society organizations. And I think we learned so much today. We have listened to a number of real experts on the autism spectrum. We've heard about sustainable development goals, leave no one behind, the human rights perspective. And I think we've learned so much since the last Autism Advantage theme at the UN World Autism Awareness Day event. It's 6 years ago. What if we look 6 years ahead from now? I think we would see a movement, and that we would see a progression from education system and into employment. Hopefully we'll have redesigned the work environment and the school environment at one time. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to express our gratitude to your participation in this event and give a special thanks to our panelists, moderator, and speakers. We hope to keep in touch and see you at future events to be announced at the UN and Specialisterne Foundation website and on social media. Hereby, I'll formally end the United Nations World Autism Awareness Day event 2021. Thanks, everyone.